what does Bavinck mean when he says that some dogma prepare for Christology? And how does that really influence the economy or the relation of doctrines within his theological system?
Yeah, that's a very good question. Just picking up on Jim's comment about how Bavinck's interest in Christology automatically sets up a whole framework within which one can locate Bavinck in the 20th century, particularly with Karl Barth, and the way Karl Barth will focus very deliberately on Christology. This idea of preparation is a particularly interesting statement in the light of what Barth does with his Christocentrism, because nothing can prepare for Christology. There's no preparation for the revelation of God in Jesus Christ. So it's very interesting to trace what Bavinck will say on this, and then what Barth will say. I think for Bavinck, there are two things on view, or perhaps even three things. In the first place, it's closely connected to what he will be wanting to do with this idea of a formal and material principle. So, an authoritative source from which theology arises, and then the leading principle by which one structures a system. And he will acknowledge that for a whole range of reasons, there are a bunch of doctrines that Christology presupposes. And so for that fact, Christology really can only be controlling other doctrines which lie downstream, if you like. So things like eschatology and ecclesiology and the doctrine of Scripture are perhaps the most obvious examples of that. But the reason he will draw that conclusion is very closely connected to the way he conceptualizes revelation. And revelation simply is history. So there's a really interesting way in which he simply turns Lessing's dictum on its head. So it's not the accidental stuff of history can't deliver the axioms of reason. It's the other way around. It's the accidental elements of our piddly attempts at reason cannot deliver history. Like history simply is revelation, and he turns Lessing's critique on its head. So this automatically brings us much more closely in line with traditional Christian Orthodox theology, which views God working in history as revelatory and accepting the biblical witness to these events. Yet it also draws us in closer connection with someone like Tobias Beck and the salvation history school of thinking and Lutheranism, and also to Hegel, for whom history is, these idealist thought. So it's a very interesting concept of preparation. So Bavinck does view all that God has done prior to the incarnation as preparatory, even up to the point of Mary. I think there's some very nice things to think about Mary and what Bavinck writes about this idea of preparation. So it's a very rich category, and I think it's something that I press into quite heavily to try and understand what Bavinck means by this. So in my book, I spent quite a bit of time thinking about in what sense does Bavinck mean prepare? Because he actually doesn't describe it in that much detail. He assumes that we can understand what preparation means. So it actually takes quite a bit of work to actually press into what is he talking